Hi, my name is Daniel Tabo, and you're welcome to the Growth Catalyst podcast by Tech for All Africa. Today we have an amazing guest with us that's doing so well in the fintech space. I mean, he's doing millions and millions of dollars in the remittance space. He has an absolutely amazing, credible record in that industry. His name is Ifelade Ayodele. Hi, Ife. Nice to meet you.
Great to meet you, Daniel. How are you doing today?
Not bad at all. Not bad. Lagos is so hot, but we thank God. Yeah. If it has going, what's happening?
I mean, usual daily hustle. I mean, we thank God.
If you say you're hustling, what should we not say?
Well, hustling.
Right. So again, guys, Ife is the CEO of Blaaiz. Tell us about Blaaiz. What's Blaaiz?
Blaaiz, thank you so much, and it's I'm really glad to be here. So Blaaiz, essentially, like you asked, we do cross-border payments and remittance, and we do that for individuals and businesses. And even though it's just cross-border payment and remittance, we've seen it apply in several use cases for our clientele base, and
that has been good.
It's been good. I mean, we have had some good traction in the last 1 year. We just started about a year ago, but I mean, we like to think that we've made our mark already, and hopefully we can continue in that trajectory.
That's actually quite interesting because I know that's not your background. Your background is in physics. So how did you transition from physics to where you are right now as the CEO of a company called Blaaiz?
I don't get asked this often, but they. Yes, I studied physics. I actually did my first degree and master's in physics, and but I'd always known that it was just a temporary thing because at the time it wasn't clear to me what I was going to do with it outside of the academia. And even though I could read and pass my exams, I didn't see myself teaching physics.
Yeah.
I wasn't that passionate about it. I just loved the mental rigor that it came with, the quant part of it, and then just being able to figure things out and having that vibe, rush of energy. So that was all that physics meant to me. But so for my second year, I decided to look out for things I could do with my physics degree.
Yes.
Even though at the time my lecturers would say, oh, you can be everything and anything. As a physics graduate, you have the power to do anything or the mental capacity, but I wanted specifics. So I started to explore a field called econophysics, basically applying physics theories and simulations to the financial markets. And that was when I got sucked in things financial services, and so leaving school from after my second degree, I just wanted to do a master's in physics because I just always wanted to have a master's in physics. So anyway, just to prove to people that I didn't run out of it because I couldn't cope. I could cope, but so I wanted to do something else. So
did you choose physics for your own, like, when you're writing your JAM, did you choose physics?
Yes. But I chose it as a second choice course.
What's your first choice?
I chose electrical engineering.
Oh, elect. The famous elect.
Yes, I chose electrical engineering, but I chose physics second choice, and because frankly, I was quite good in physics in secondary school, and my teacher was like, if you're good at it, pursue it. I don't know now if that was a good advice or a bad advice, but I followed the advice.
But you loved it.
I loved it. Physics was everything and more for me. It was enjoyable. I just didn't see myself staying there afterwards, after that mental academia rigor of it.
I agree. So tell me, what was the thinking behind Blaaiz? What were you guys thinking?
I think the thinking behind Blaaiz was basically to do something that solves a solution, that solves a problem that I've personally encountered. So, and part of the thing was that in my career, I used to work with Stanbic IBTC. I was opportunity to move across a few countries for different reasons whilst at the bank. So shout out to Stanbic for that. I had that opportunity there. And then afterwards, going to business school in Paris, I've had the opportunity to move around a few markets. And as an African, it was obvious that at every point in time, the global market wasn't... People that build solutions for the global market didn't necessarily have the average African in mind, whilst they were building solutions for cross-border payments, having accounts in different places. So that was obviously something I kind of like observed. And then to address that, I just thought that once I was done with my last job in consulting, I thought that this is something I've experienced firsthand. Why don't I explore it further and see what we could potentially offer other Africans that are like me, and then that would come in a few years to come.
That's a good thing. So you saw a problem and you said to yourself, I'm going to solve the problem. Is there a reason why quote and unquote, Stanbic did take it upon himself to solve that problem?
So banking is different altogether for what we do, and banking is, I mean, we are regulated, quite regulated, I would say, but banking is the regulation there is on another level. So you can't be a local bank in Nigeria and be servicing clients, so to speak, in another jurisdiction. You have to set up an entirely new bank and get the license and all of that. I mean, that's what we have to do too, but it's just a different ball game.
Yes.
It's not as easy as it would be for us. And also coupled with the fact that banks exist on some really very rigid infrastructure and tradition and culture.
Yes.
So
Brick and
scaling
mortar,
to,
all of that.
it's not a easy
Because I've
thing.
seen most of the top CEOs for fintechs right now, they would say, I was in this bank, I was in that bank. And I'm saying to myself, did those banks not think to solve those problems at the time? And so it's for someone listening right now who is in the bank thinking, I need to leave the bank to go and, in a sense, look for a solution to a problem. I'm just thinking, is it because you're in the bank that you can see the loopholes?
So banking is, I mean, obviously as any other institution, it's a quite big one. So there are different roles, different functions. So the extent of what you can see as a gap or as a market to address is to the extent to which the bank allows you to be exposed to. So if you're working in, say, compliance, you probably have a good view of how the bank operates fully across board or something. But if you're a software developer and to probably make it more specific, a particular product or something, you're not likely to see the full scope of what the market could potentially offer. So it just, first is it depends on the role you are taking in the bank. And then secondly, if you worked in a bank, it means that you're familiar with all things money. I mean, depending on how you came in also, because I had gone through like a graduate training program.
Yes,
2 months, you were training you all things, basically trying to take out all the physics in my brain and putting finance in there. But so you have a basic understanding. You're not starting from zero. You're starting from a particular knowledge base. And if you put 2 and 2 together, plus the network that you must have developed while at the bank,
yes,
you're able to, if you're very resourceful and kind and people can relate with you have a good place to start off any career.
That makes sense.
Fintech.
You know, you rightly mentioned that you've worked across different markets, right? What would you say has been one of the challenges in scaling a project or a business, especially one from Nigeria?
I think that I could answer your question in 2 ways.
Okay.
The first is if we kind of like set aside the Nigerian factor, so challenges of scaling a project, or I'll take, for instance, I use an example was my time as a consultant in my previous job at Accenture. So easily in a room, you had a British, you had an American, you had a Japanese, you had an Indian, and these people are not just like, if I'll put it in a they're not vanilla humans, if I put it that way. They've also interacted with other cultures. So when I say Japanese, it's Japanese 60%, but it's probably Chinese 20%, something. So in like maybe 5 races naturally should be, you have like 15 pieces or representations of people in a room, and then you're all trying to interact and solve a problem and get things over the line depending on what you're trying to do. So it usually comes with its
so their worldviews,
struggles.
their where they come, their background, all of this influences their decisions, their thoughts. Even you as a Nigerian in that same room, you are thinking of how can I solve this problem based on my own influence and background.
Yeah, it's even to the basic things like, we've done with work, we want to go out this evening, and you are like in Nigeria, and I'm probably saying I'm tired, but for another culture, that's rude. In fact, it was time was like, you're not a team player. I'm like, but this is not work. This is after work.
Yes.
So you can imagine how that would typically go. So that's one of the challenges I would say I've had to scale working on projects across different jurisdictions.
Yes.
From the Nigerian part, I think that it's mostly, and it's not anyone's fault. I think there's a perception already if you carry the green passport or you claim to be Nigerian. So number one is the perception of the market. You're coming from an emerging market. So especially if whatever you're trying to do has some sort of leg or interaction with the mature markets, the perception is you do not necessarily measure up yet, either in terms of your compliance posture, in terms of your sophistication, maybe in some instances in terms of how much you could bring to the table in terms of your intellectual capacity. So there's already that ring that you're boxed into. That's one. And I think second is also things as we normally would see, corruption, practices and all of that. So it makes things, it can put a sort of
it does
cap on how much you can potentially fly. So
Yes.
those are the major issues that we've had to face in projects.
So with that in mind, right, I'm thinking, what are you betting on over the next 5 years in terms of that intersection between technology and finance over the next 5 years? What would you want to bet on to redefine the African business landscape?
I think I would put my bet on how cryptocurrency could transform things for us in Africa and potentially serve as that leapfrog from where we're at to at least closing the gap a little bit tighter between us and the rest of the world. I think cryptocurrency, of course, it has its guardrails that need to be observed to have a good experience altogether. But I'll definitely put my bets on cryptocurrency to see how it could potentially offer some sort of better experience both for individuals and corporates and anybody at that.
But why cryptocurrency?
It's this digital asset. So the thing about cryptocurrency is the speed of execution. So literally look at like 15 years ago, I probably wasn't as aware as I am now, but I'm not sure that things for the preference for all things fast was a thing. Fast car, fast food, fast transfer. Literally, if you wanted to do 5K transfer, you go to a bank, you had to be patient. So
even
speed,
internet was slow.
Yes, even internet was slow. Right. So now that everybody wants fast food, fast drink, fast car, fast this. So in that light, it's also how financial services is evolving. People want things to happen fast. And as of what we are today, the only technology that can deliver that or that offers that is cryptocurrency. Traditional banking system, you are looking 3-5 days to make some transactions, in fact. But cryptocurrency, you could literally be going from one end of the world to the other, and then minutes, money has changed hands, value has changed hands. So that is one of the core reasons that makes cryptocurrency easy to advocate for as a game changer.
Do you think tech businesses in Nigeria or in Africa generally, maybe they focus too much on just local demands?
I do not think so. And I would probably even argue that the average tech business, of course, they want the local demand because that sort of serves as a validation of whatever product or idea that you have.
Yes.
But the world is becoming even more and more, should I say,
a global village,
such that whatever it is you're building, with a few tweaks here and there, and of course, understanding the other markets, you could translate a solution and with a few tweaks, take it to other markets and serve them better because everything is becoming so interconnected such that you can't afford to have. I think focus is becoming a luxury. I think focus, in my opinion, of course, you're not trying to be everywhere, but laser focus, it's a luxury that as a tech entrepreneur, you probably can't afford.
Yeah. What would you say were your mistakes when you were starting up?
Mistakes? I don't think they were mistakes, or maybe mistakes that turned out to be good or perceived mistakes at the time and turned out to be good. Maybe that.
And you want to use that to say for those who might have made mistakes in their startup business, how can they re-navigate and then make it into success?
Okay, so now this is more specific to my company or to run a startup. I think the mistakes I made, or one that I think I make and constantly have to jerk myself to not make now, is the two. First is don't start asking for things when you think you need it. I think that as a tech entrepreneur, you need to be able to see at least 1 year ahead of your company. So if you're trying to do something in 2026, you should have an indication. It should not drop in your mind in December 2025 that you're trying to do something. It should be, which is also goes back to having time to sit on your company and work on your company as opposed to work in your company to say what would we need in 1 year from now and then what can I start. Even if you have to do 1 inch of activity every day, you would add up as opposed to December 2025, you need something 2026, you're now running around. Things are quite complicated and you will probably have to push it to 2027.
Yes, and then with the speed of things happening in the tech space, you might not be able to catch up as opposed to when you've prepared yourself. That's such an interesting...
The market moves really fast and then things don't happen as fast, especially with compliance. You want to get a license somewhere. You can't just start. The average license to get in Africa, you're looking at 5-6 months. That's even the best case scenario. So imagine you need to operate in the market and you want to own your own license and you're thinking it's 1-2 weeks thing. So you need to have thought about it 7 months prior.
Yeah, so even a year, just in case of some eventualities.
And start to do that already. So I think that's one that I wasn't overly prepared for. I just thought that maybe because I had worked in consulting and places where if you wanted things badly enough, you could make it happen quite fast, but that wasn't the case. And maybe the second time one would be that staying lean but staying ready. If once you're starting your company, where like, of course, you don't want to grow headcount aggressively from day one, but you also want to get your company ready for scale.
Yes.
So I think that is
talking about your company. You want to tell us, specifically, what's the mission and what drove you to want to push some sort of change across Africa and for your generation also?
Yeah, I think that for me, I remember when I was asking myself why this company and what do we really want to. Of course, we are here to make money. There are relevant stakeholders that need to be made good, if I use that word, so, including employees. So, but again, beyond that, it's also, for me, it's also the concept of intra-generational mobility. So basically saying that if you took 5 generations in a family or a clan to own a car, for instance, the next 5 generations, it shouldn't take another 5 generations in another family or in the same clan to own a car. We can collapse it. It's 2 generations should be able to own a car. It's that intergenerational mobility for me to say that if, for me, for instance, I had my first laptop as an undergrad in uni, and it was thanks to my cousin at the time who sent me some money to say, I just basically told her I don't have a laptop. To say, how much? I can't remember the exact value, but for her, she was earning in pounds. It was
little money to get a laptop for you.
She made way for the money to come. So that was the use case. That was one of the aha moments for me to say, my sister sent me, my cousin rather, sent me this, and then I was able to use it to, I know how much that laptop transformed my life from my first programming language learning, doing some really hardcore quant stuff in school as a physics student. And ultimately, you could argue like changed the course of my life. If we can facilitate that kind of inflow for more people, it means that if somebody was going to get their first laptop in 300 level, they could get in 100 level, probably get an internship with Google, and their first paycheck comes in 100 level. They can set something up for their family, and then so they have taken 4 or 5 years. You can crash it to 6 months. So that was some of the early motivations to say, let's expose people, which is also how the product works now. You are here. We enable you to work with any company in the world because we'll give you an account number as though you're in the US, and then you do your work, you get paid, which probably otherwise would not have been easy for you. So those are the things to say, apart from being commercially viable as a business, we're also helping people to accelerate their journeys.
That thinking cuts across all sectors. It even drives change across countries who are looking to shrink the years it would have taken them to develop, for example. It just helps to reduce that. That's remarkable.
Yeah, so that's how that's an early, should I say, motivation for me to say, if we can do something that solves this, not, of course, we can't solve for everybody. For a few people, we would have done a good job.
I have to say this, but I think that there are so many companies, especially in the fintech space, that is coming up right now. So many of them, right? And I'm not against it, okay? But I want to know, how does Blaaiz differ from all of those companies?
And honestly, I think that, yes, to your point, there's so many players, especially in cross-border payments. But I think that one thing that Blaaiz identified very early on, apart from being mission-driven, so most people have come in, and also because of the political landscape and economic landscape in most African countries, it can be an opportunistic move. You could say, the African population is growing, 35% are young. They are not going to stay in Africa. Everybody will go to Asia, go to ESO, and then they will need to stay rooted and connected to their roots. So it's an opportunistic move if you put it, and it's not a time-bound one. At least it will go on to 2050 because that's when we expect the peak of it. But that's on the one side. But in terms of how we differentiate, it's like we're taking a long-term view at this. So we're building not just for the end user, but like I said, it's a very massive opportunity. We do not think that the timeline in terms of the lifespan of the opportunity is soon. So we've emphasized that this is going to last to 2050, meaning that more and more people will come. And then why not be that guy that makes it easy for an average young graduate today that thinks that he has an opportunity to play in this space. So what we've started to do is to now build the infrastructure for other players, that even the guys that we met in the market or the guys that would come to come and ride on. So we're not just building that to say we want Daniel to come and use our app. We're building for another person that seeks to serve Daniel. So at the end of the day, we're moving back and back and back. And it's also because we've had the hard conversations with the, should I say, critical ecosystem players, the big companies, the people that will ideally not want to talk to you, but for some reason, we are investing our energy and time and resources into having those difficult conversations. It takes a while. So the average company doesn't want to go through that route. They just want to go to market from day one.
Yes.
So we're investing in that to make sure that we can take over that backhaul infrastructure, and any other person that wants to come, we'll just white label the solution to you. Go do your thing and explore. And
I think you're laying such an amazing foundation, though.
yeah, we hopefully time will justify and reward us.
Yes. So with what you're saying, right, I am hoping, and correct me if I'm wrong, that your team, those that work with you, are all innovators.
At the core of you have to be, because and this is what I tell everybody that comes to work. So if I put out a role and say front-end engineer, as of today, I don't know what it would be tomorrow. If all you bring to the table is stellar front-end engineering work and stuff, you're probably not going to get the job with me.
So it's part of your culture.
Yeah, it is. You have to be able to do more than what you... And then even if you can't at the time, I need to see that enthusiasm and willingness to say, oh, this is my core, this is what I do very well, but I'm also willing to learn and see. And then innovation, that's how innovation comes. You need to be able to add one and two together and look for a simpler or better way to do it. So, but if you're not even aware of what's happening in two, how do you make things better for everybody? So for us, it's, of course, we have people that are very, very forward-looking and are actually constantly thinking of ways to get things better. But I don't like to, because it's also I think it's an over-abused word, or abused word if you say innovation, but we can tell. Let's not even say innovation. Let's just see how enthusiastic, or if you're very inquisitive, maybe that's the word. You just need to be inquisitive enough for us at Blaaiz, and then
so you have to think beyond your current job role. What's happening in the market? How can we evolve? How can we solve more problems?
Exactly.
So with this thinking, right, and for your team, what milestone have you guys achieved that you would say, I'm truly proud of that milestone? How did it come about? And if there were some sort of failures that came before that milestone was achieved, just tell us, what was it like?
In terms of milestones, I mean, like I said, we launched our first mobile app in May last year, so it's not even a year yet. Yes. And I mean, we've done very well in terms of downloads and reviews. That's a very huge one. And then it's so also uncommon to see that a company that's even less than 1 year in the market already powers other companies that have even been in the market 2-3 years.
Yes.
So that means that we're setting our priorities right. So that's also a very significant achievement for me. And I think that our people being able to convince some really, in fact, we're not a very big team yet, but every single person that's choosing to come, being able to convince them to take the ride with us. Like, for me personally, that's a big one for me, because they were doing great in their respective jobs, but being able to come on board and say that we're sold to this dream to drive this forward is.
And I think your company is leading by example. Let me use that word, because you're trying to shrink time, and you shrink time for yourself. Because you just said less than 1 year, and you're already powering other companies to do what they need to do, which is you're leading by example.
Yes,
that's a good one. Because it's one thing for you to say this is what you do as a company. It's another thing for me to say that you are doing it for yourself as a company. That way, it's easier for me to say, oh, nice. If in less than 1 year you've done this, that means if you come and work for me or power what I'm trying to do, you can also apply the same solution to help drive success of my company, which is admirable. Yeah, it's admirable.
I mean,
in less than 1 year, how many downloads do you?
I mean, I think they're all out of the stores, but I think that we've done at least, combination of Apple and Google, maybe about 20,000 downloads. But again, remember that we do not just serve individuals. We serve individuals and businesses. And businesses operate on the web app. So I also have individuals who don't even download the app.
Yes, but they also kind of like use the web app. That's amazing. So if in less than 1 year you've done this, this might be me putting you on a very high scale.
Okay.
What are you looking to do in the next 5 years?
No, this is me. I'm going to probably contradict myself just a little bit. So 5 years is such a long time. And I said that you have to be futuristic.
Yes.
But I if I will put a mark to it, I think you think 2 years, because 5 years is such a long time for everything you
things
know
can
now
happen.
to literally have turned on you.
Yes.
So you want to
We're
also
the
be
COVID,
careful.
We're the COVID generation, so we have that now, mine right now.
yeah. So
Yes.
so that. But in terms of the next 1 year, 2 years, it's just basically just trying to double down in terms of expanding to our key markets that we see the opportunities. Because I mean, what drives our expansion or should I say adoption of a new market is what are the opportunities there and what's the regulatory landscape like, what kind of leverage can we have in this market that will make us an average player. So it's basically the next 2 years we're looking at growing into our priority markets and also of course in terms of the how do I put it now, our margins. So as like I said before, as we go further back, we're able to improve our margins as a company, so which improves our overall financial status or health. That's also something we're looking at over the next. And also, it will be our greatest joy to power, if not 20%, 10% of every new player. I mean, of every batch of new players. So if in December 100 new people want to start remittance, if they find us, if 10% of them find us worthy and reliable enough to adopt us to power them, that's something that we're looking at, and that's actually the main goal at this point in time.
I was gonna say to you, I mean, I just hear you speaking. I'm truly amazed. You have such wealth of experience, and you also have what I would say is from different markets. You know what's obtainable, and then you've brought all of that into the current fintech space. So the question is here for me is: would you be open to mentoring young people?
So because I think I do that passively today, and even my small sphere of influence, which is the employees. So every point in time I get the opportunity to sell the vision to them, make them more aware of their contributions, and of course they know that they can always ask me, and also ask me questions. For the should I say more junior ones, even the quite senior ones, we can have should I say conversations. But again, that's something I currently do passively, but I do not think that I'm in the best position to actively do that now. If somebody really pushed hard enough, maybe I would say, okay, for this effort, this, but that's not something I would put myself out for, like willingly to say I want to start mentoring. I feel like there's so much work to still be done.
There's so much work,
and that can set back a little bit. But I'm happy to, every time now and then somebody says, oh, how did you get into business school? Can you ask me this? Can you do this? And I'm happy to type everything to you on LinkedIn or something. But active mentoring, it's not something I can take on at a scale right now. Maybe one or two here and there. So,
if that's the case, what would you say to your younger self? If you were to meet your younger self today, what would you say to your younger self?
Fail fast, fail forward. Fail fast. Like, don't be scared to make mistakes, and make those mistakes very, very early. Don't be scared. Just do it. And if you fail quickly, you will be able to. Because the longer you wait, the bigger the consequences, if I put it that way, of failing.
You have more responsibilities now.
Yeah.
And all of that. And I think that you rightly said that well, because for those people who still get money from their parents, for example, if they fail now, there's something to bounce back on. But for you who, in a sense, have more responsibilities, you are very careful of your failure.
Yeah, it is exactly that. As you grow, your responsibilities could easily double, triple, whatever, and then meaning that there's less room for, or less margin for error, in your decisions, and that means that ultimately you become overly careful. You can't take risks, you can't dare, and what is life without all of those things? I feel like if you keep it safe, keep it low.
Yes.
Yeah. So you probably be
This is good. This is good. But just to also add to that, right? You've been seeing the whole ecosystem about people raising money, and after some few years, they either close up. Let me use that word. What do you think is happening? How does that rip out trust from the ecosystem?
So I'll probably say this looking at the camera. That is concerning for me. It's not a unique experience to the Nigerian ecosystem. It happens everywhere, but it's just that to what extent are we making a fuss or noise about it? I'm not saying it's not a valid reason for concern, but it's just that it's the game, and that's the risk that people, nobody would put their life or at least predictable income on hold and start something and wish for it to fail. But it's just that sometimes a couple bad decisions and stuff. But it is concerning. But I do also think that there's context that most
That
times
might be
we
missing,
may
right?
never know. And again, it is the game in entrepreneurship. People fail every now and then, and some of the ones that would even dare for that start up something else, and then you see somebody say they're a 3-time founder or something. They're usually the ones that I personally like to talk to,
Yes.
even if they failed in 3 startups, because you have so much to learn from them, and that
Yes.
is how it is. It's
Yes.
a bet on, because they can't waste 5 years, 3 years of their lives knowing fully well that this thing will fail. So again, I think my point is there's all this context that is missing, that maybe these founders would do the rest of us a lot of good if you could someone write something, a book, post something that enlightens the rest of us somehow to know that, because like I said, nobody says how to feel. And of course, there are the bad eggs, people that are just not in it for the long game or for the right reasons and right motivations. But again, for most people, I think that there's context that we usually will never know.
So from this insight, I like how you touched on different aspects, right? So I want to say to you that if you were a VC company, what would you look at in terms of investing in a company?
I think
funding a company?
the founder, interestingly, I did this stint at a VC, so I worked at a VC firm. So I think the founder is a key determinant of where I would place my bet, or if I would place my bet with you, I think.
So just to hold that thought, so if the company was doing well and the founder doesn't have great personality or has some sort of bad character, you're saying you wouldn't invest in it?
If the company is doing well, then the founder is doing something right. And nobody has everything together.
Yeah.
So I think at that point, it's a question of, is this a reformable flaw? Can we work on something for the founder? Because apparently it's probably 10% or 20% of him that is flawed, but 80% means if the company is doing well, it's killing it, doing something well. So you need to, big questions to ask is that, is this flaw reformable or redeemable?
Yeah.
Second is, to what extent can this flaw be catastrophic for the company? To what extent can it impact the company? If the behavior is such that it will never even affect 0.1% of your company's valuation or something, then it's probably something that we can live with, depending on what it is, again, context. So for me, the founder is very important. And then if there are obvious flaws, like I would argue everybody has their flaws, it doesn't stop me. It just needs to look at it. We just need to look at it in terms of like, to what extent does this impact the now and the future of the company, especially the future of the company? Because sometimes companies are at a phase where some flaws or cultural values do not necessarily impact things until when things scale, and then it could be brutal. So you want to look at it from that perspective.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's what I would say to that.
That's so full of wisdom. I mean, I couldn't agree any less. So tell me, let's away from the many serious questions, which are also very important.
Yeah.
If you were a food, what food would you be?
Ha. So if I was food, maybe rice and beans.
No, no.
I mean, I'm a man of little pleasure. I can literally I can beans every day. So
Yeah,
maybe
rice and beans every day.
I don't ask for much in life.
Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. That's not bad.
Maybe that.
Yeah. So guys, you've heard from Ifelade Ayodele. Such an amazing conversation we just had right now. I can't wait for him to come back. Right. But before we go, what's one question you want me to ask the next guest when they come on the podcast?
What would they be doing? Would they be an entrepreneur like myself, or a creative or something?
They'll be most likely be an entrepreneur yes.
I think you could ask them what they'll be doing if they were not doing what they are currently doing. But don't ask me. Next question.
Oh, that's such a good
I get
question.
the privilege of that.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, man.